everybody, welcome to AS&MT with Nick. Today we're covering a huge case I wanted to cover for quite a while. This is the case of Tamala Horsford. It's not a super well-known case, but it's definitely one, if you live in Georgia, you would definitely know. It is a pretty juicy one, and it's definitely one we're going to be covering on AS&MT Investigates, the podcast on Spodify, which brings me to the first order of business. If you guys aren't already aware, we now have a podcast on Spotify. Season 3 is currently streaming on Spotify and exclusively on Spotify, so go on Spotify to check out our podcast. I host it with a few friends of mine, as well as check us out, as well as we're on TikTok and we're on YouTube, so please subscribe, turn on the bell, comment down below your theories for this case, and keep checking those out because we're going to be dropping uploads on YouTube as well as our episodes on our AS&MT Investigates podcast, which episodes drop Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you guys have any theories for this case, let me know in the comments below. Alright, with all that out of the way let's get into who was Tamala Horsford. So, Tamala Horsford was born in the Caribbean, and she was a black woman. She didn't like cold weather, and she actually couldn't handle it. She was from Forsyth County in Georgia. She was married to Leander, also known as Lee, and they had a 16-year-old marriage. Tamala had 5 sons and 1 stepdaughter who had moved out at the time this happened. Now, later on in their life, Tamala and Lee, they would end up moving because they originally were from Florida, but they would actually move to Forsyth, Georgia. Lee, Tamala, and their 5 sons. Tamala's sons, now they were really into football, so Tamala was a football mom, and she loved, being a football mom. She really enjoyed it because she got the chance to be close to her kids. She also volunteered at their schools and attended every single game. And she was described as a very friendly and just great person overall, the life of the party. So it kind of makes you wonder, how this woman could do so good, yet what would happen to her would be so bad. I'd also like to mention, before we get into everything that happens on this night, that Forsyth County in Georgia was a particularly racist community, and I just want you guys to keep that in the back of your head as I tell this story and everything that happened on this night. On the night of November 3rd, 2018, Tamala would attend a slumber party hosted by a football mom named John. Now, John, she had a slumber party, and the entire slumber party was full of football moms from the team that Tamala's sons played on. Now, Tamala was the only black person at the party, or in the entire home at that matter. Now, Tamala knew John, but not all of the other moms, so she had seen these mothers before, but they were kind of like acquaintances. She really didn't know many of them. Now, no men were supposed to be at this slumber party. It was supposed to be only an all-girls slumber party. However, though, 2 guys were actually in attendance. This would be Jose, who was the boyfriend of Jean. He was 27 years old, and Thomas, the husband of Stacy, who was the host of this party. Now, while the slumber party was going on upstairs in the living room, the 2 guys agreed to stay downstairs in the theater room. Now, all of the moms are watching a football game at this party, and Tamala was wearing her paw print onesie pajamas. However, though, she was the only mom wearing PJs. And the party would start around 8:00 p.m. that night. Now, when Tamala arrived, she gave John, whose party this was, a very expensive bottle of alcohol, yet as a gift, yet John said she did not want it for whatever reason, and she didn't accept the gift. Later on into the night, food would eventually come out, and Jose and Tom, who were downstairs, they would then come upstairs and they would hang out upstairs for the rest of the night. Now, Tamala was drinking, but according to the witnesses at the party, she hadn't been drinking to the point where she wasn't sober or she was like all over the place. She was pretty together. And Tamala was actually having a very good time at the party because she lived in a house of all guys. She didn't get much girl time, so she was very much enjoying being at this party of all just women. Now, during the party, the other woman in attendance would actually be also making racial comments about Tamala and kind of making fun of her. Now, Tamala would also go out to the porch throughout the night to smoke a cigarette. Tamala was a smoker. Now, at around 1:45 a.m. in the morning, this is technically November 4th now, Tamala and a woman named Bridget were the last to awake. And while Bridget was then going to get picked up to leave the party, Tamala wanted her to stay because she doesn't get much girl time, but Bridget had to leave, so Tamala said she was going to go out on the porch, just have one more smoke, and then she was going to go to bed. This would be apparently the last sighting of Tamala when she was alive. At around 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. on November 4th, 2018, according to John's aunt, Madeline, she was making coffee in the kitchen when she sees PJs peeking over the grass in the backyard. She then, for some reason, got on her knees, said a quick prayer, then drinks her coffee, and then read the newspaper, and then ran upstairs and knocked on John's door. At the time, she said that she heard running water from behind the door. Now, Madeline presumes that John might just be in the shower, so she heads back downstairs and she starts to kind of freak out because she sees Tamala is in the backyard. Tamala looked to be face down in the backyard and she looked to not be breathing or moving. After a little while, Madeline then goes back upstairs and knocks on John's door again. Now, from John's statement at around 8:45 a.m., Madeline, John's aunt, knocks on John's door, and according to John, her and Jose were sleeping in her bed. She said at first that there was no running water in the room, but then retracted that statement and said that she thought there might have been running water. So off the bat, we can already see that stories are kind of starting to change. John opens the door. Madeline then tells John and Jose what had happened to Tamala, and they rush downstairs. She referred to Tamala as your friend from the islands. So John tells Jose to go run downstairs and check to see if Tamala was alive and if she was all good. Now, John's boyfriend, Jose, goes outside and goes to the body while police were called by John, who hands the phone then to Jose, and Jose says that he touches the body and that she wasn't breathing, but yet he didn't check up holes. Now, while he was on phone with police, he was also trying to describe the manner of death by saying that she probably fell from the balcony or that she jumped while on the phone with 911. Jose would then eventually go on to change his story a couple of times. Also, John and Jose said that one of Tamala's arms was extended up, but her wrist was dislocated, yet John would also say that both arms were at her side. When police arrived to the residence, they immediately go say hello to Jose, who worked in law enforcement. When they're finally done talking to Jose, they then go to the body to examine the scene. Police would then call all partygoers back to the house, yet didn't separate them, so it gave them time to get together and get their stories straight. Now, the Georgia Bureau of Investigations would be the first ones to conduct Tamala's autopsy. Her first autopsy came back and suggested Jose's theory that Tamala fell. The couple would also do some pretty strange things in the weeks following when they would get interviewed for the case. For example, during Jose's interview, John would walk in, hit on the officer, and bribe the officers in the room. She'd also say some pretty mean remarks about going to Tamala's funeral. John would also get interviewed. However, though, in the middle of her interview, she would actually take a phone call and completely disrupt and ruin the entire interview for the officers that were interviewing her. The second autopsy of Tamala's body, which would be taken, would then show that she suffered from blunt force trauma to the head, as well as to the neck, as well as bruises near her arms and upper body. It was clear that this was no longer a fall from the balcony, but rather something more sinister, and somebody was trying to cover it up. That need to cover this up just kind of sends an almost sickness kind of feel in my body, that all these people kind of conspired to cover this poor woman's death up like this, when somebody in the house was probably responsible for what happened here. Now, police asked John for some cameras or any kind of footage or anything like that that could possibly give an explanation of what could have happened, so police can get an insight. And while John said they did have cameras, especially on the porch, they ironically didn't work when all this went down. But police also never confiscated any of the camera footage that they did have. John did say, though, that she had an app on her phone that tracked whenever doors closed and opened and at which time they did so. So, according to the door app, the garage door opened at 1:39 a.m., the garage door then closed at 1:40 a.m., the garage door then opened at 1:40 a.m., then the front door opened at 1:47 a.m., then closed at 1:47 a.m., then the back door opened at 1:49 a.m., then closed at 1:50 a.m., then opened for one last time at 1:57 a.m., but was never closed. Now, Jose ended up getting fired from his law enforcement job a few years later after trying to access Tamala's case files. While we don't know who exactly killed Tamala, we do know that it was somebody from that slumber party, and police are very suspicious of them. However, though, no action has been made, and this most likely could have been because Jose did have law enforcement connections. Now, when we talk theories, it is kind of hard to know what truly happened here. I mean, we do have the evidence from the phone and, from the door app and all that. And we do know it probably had to be somebody from the house, and due to the injuries, somebody definitely attacked her when she went out on to the porch. But it is kind of hard to shape a theory. But one theory was probably that because she was the only black person in the house, somebody was going to be racist, and they all probably just were kind of annoyed by her, because it seemed like from what people were saying at the party to her and people's remarks about her, that some of these women did not like her. So what I'm theorizing is that they didn't like her, so they went on the porch and they possibly just killed her, or at least attacked her, as they probably didn't like her. Another theory that was thrown around was that possibly Tamala could have actually fallen off the balcony, but the injuries just don't match up really with the story that is trying to be crafted here. The case has been going on for about 5 years now, and we are not really any close to an answer. But I'm sure over the next few years, hopefully, there might be some sort of break, or we can finally get answers to who exactly killed Tamala Horsford. Alright guys, that is going to be the video. Thank you guys so much for listening. Remember that AS&MT Investigates the podcast is on Spotify, and the first half of Season 3 is currently streaming now, and there's special episodes and surprise episodes coming as well. Make sure you guys subscribe to our TikTok channel as well. Subscribe to our YouTube, comment, turn on the bell so you don't miss any AS&MT Investigate content. Make sure you like. I want to hear your theories in the comments below. And thank you for watching this video. Goodbye, everybody.